Came and went. There we go. Sorry, a little bit late. Nothing was working, so I did the only thing that you can do when nothing is working, and that is turn everything off, wait for a minute, and plug it, start it up again. And yep, that's what happened. But it took a little while to figure out that nothing was working, and then, tried a few things and ended up with the old, you might as well just, unplug it and replug it. So, kind of tired this morning. The allergies have been a little bit nasty. Anyway, it's supposed to be a really nice day today. So what better way to spend a day that's really nice than sitting in your basement painting stuff? So I'm going to be painting something. I'm not sure what thing I'm going to paint. I have 4 things that just got printed and primed. We have a giant demon toad. This is compared to our minifigs, which are come up to about its eye. I think my minifig might come up, the tallest of them, up to about the eye. So this is definitely a very gigantic demon toad. We have this thing, which I think is actually a real thing in Dungeons and Dragons, but that would require remembering, and this will be a real challenge to paint well. This is something that Nicole would do really well, because it calls for just a lot of detailing and shading and the kinds of things that are difficult for me to do. It's also got all of these little fragile things all over the place. In the process of picking it up and taking it to where I do priming, and then priming it and bringing it back down, I only almost broke it twice. Well, actually 3 times. There was another time this morning when I bumped it, but I didn't knock it over, but I could have broken one of these antlers. Anyway, I'm keeping this way off to the side in a place where hopefully nobody touches things. So I'm not going to be painting this right away, if at all, because the technical skill it requires in order to make it look really good is something probably I can't do. So that's probably not the thing I'm going to be painting. I have this. You might not be able to tell exactly what that is. That is a badger playing a saxophone. And you might say, why? And when I first saw this, I said that. It's like, what? What? This badger playing a saxophone? What's that all about? But, it's got a hat with a feather and a neckerchief kind of thing. So this might be something that happens to knives. This might be interesting to paint. It's tiny. So this would definitely be a head magnifier and teeny little brushes. Badgers aren't terribly colorful, but in order to get their fur to look right, it requires some sort of like dry brushing. A light color over a dark color, and then they've got these black and white bands on their face, which is a little bit hard to do because the face is pretty much covered here. At least I don't have to worry about the white tips on the ears because they're covered. But I can make a pink hat with like a purple neckerchief, kind of nines colors, and a feather that is discordant in terms of its color. So this is a thing. This is one of the thing I might paint. And then the other thing I might paint, this thing is a really, really, really big shark. Okay. Like a megalodon kind of shark. And this one, This one might be kind of interesting to paint. It's basically just gray with little white underneath and a red mouth and eyes. Trying to get some sort of shading on it, you know, so it's a little darker and it shades toward light on the bottom. And then making sure that the boundary between the white underneath and the top is a little bit fuzzy. You don't want it to be like a straight line. And then you could play around with the water, you know, you could get like white, and I could use the pearlescent paints to get it all watery looking with splashes and stuff. So this one might be okay. It might be an okay thing to paint. So, hi Who. Yep, just in time. I've only wasted 10 minutes talking about the thing I might paint. I will paint something here. But I think I am going to try to tackle this, and I might even move the camera down closer so that you can kind of see what I'm doing. I'm going to do that in a way that's kind of shaky and disorienting. It's always fun to do that. And then get out the little bitty brushes, and anyway, yeah, painting stuff. I'm going to paint some things, so I'll put these aside. And let's see, I'll do a flip. Let's do a flip. I don't know. I lost my little Sears thing. Seaver, because the S is broken off. What could I flip instead? I haven't flipped this in a while. It's tiny. It is. It's like really little. I thought it would be like 50% bigger. But no, I guess it's, anyway, yeah, it'll be tiny. It's like after doing the submarine, if you watch Subwed, when I was painting bulkheads and some of the detail on that, this is actually fairly large. Even something like the feather is a large feature compared to what I was dealing with the sub. So I guess it's not too bad. I'm going to put it way up out of the way if I'm going to flip something that's going to be breakable. So I could explain what this is. Let me flip it first, and then I'll tell you what it is. Yeah, this flips pretty well. Almost landed on its edge 3 times in a row on the same side. Yeah, look at that. It doesn't want to end. There we go. Finally. You can see there is another side. So if you watch the little scroll underneath me, if you're watching this, you see that there's like minifigs and scatter stuff like tents and barrels and stuff. Yeah, we can just keep flipping, you know, things like that. But one of them is a necromancy layer. In fact, there's 3 of them, 3 different colors. There's a red one and a purple one and a green one. And what this is the test. This is the test for that pool. We have this stuff called realistic water, which is a liquid plastic that eventually sets up and hardens. You'll get some relaxing painting. I'm going to put off relaxing painting as long as I can today, because it's just that kind of day, you know. You missed it. This thing started slow. I started late, because nothing was working. Okay. The computer didn't boot up. The monitors were dark. I think the only thing that was really working was the camera that for some reason is aimed at me. So like the least important thing was the only thing that was really kind of working. And I could tell that was working because it's got a little view screen on it. So I had to, turn everything off and turn it back on and hope for the best. And if it's going to be that kind of day, it's the kind of day to avoid doing things. So what I'm doing is I'm talking about this. That's not it. That's a different kind of dungeon. that cauldron in the middle there has a flame on it that attaches magnetically, which is a really cool thing. Should see that sometime. We actually should change the crawl on this so that there's different stuff, something that's less than like 8 months old. I should talk to our tech support people who really like to spend time doing this kind of thing, about changing it so that we have something more contemporary. Anyway, the necromancy pool, we decided we would try this realistic water because it's, it looks like liquid. So we said, well, what can we use? And there was a bottle cap, and that was cheap. And if it got messed up, it wasn't really a problem. So we put a base coat in. This one actually was originally base coated green. You can kind of see it around the edges, but thought, well, let's see what happens with red. So we base coated it and let it dry, and then put the realistic water in, and then added these other paints while it was still wet. And it gave a really cool effect, because if you drop some paint in, it just started diffusing. So it started spreading around, so there's some lighter stuff and darker stuff. And then if you needed to, you could get like a toothpick or something and move it around even more. So this became the test prototype of one of our dungeons. And that's what we do here on Relaxing Painting with Darts and Dungeons, is paint dungeon tiles and minifigs for our Dungeons and Dragons campaign. I'm going to move the camera down now. See this little speck? That little speck in the middle there? That's what I'll be painting. So let's see what happens if I do this. It has all sorts of adjustments on it, except for the one that doesn't work very well. There we go. It's still small, isn't it? But you can kind of, now you can kind of see what it is. So the challenge here is going to be for me to keep it on camera while I relaxingly paint it. Boy, I wonder what colors I should, I don't know. So I think I'm going to paint the hat first, because I'll be painting up to it from underneath with the badger colors. The scarf is a really cool thing. You know, it's got this little knot on it and it flays out. But I might just paint that as a detail after I get the body done. And then I'm likely to do the saxophone last. Yep. So the badger itself is going to be like a dark gray. When you look at one, it looks pretty light, kind of a light gray color, but it isn't. It's like dark underneath and white on the top. The hair of the fur hairs are dark underneath with white tips. So the way I should do that is paint it dark, and it's dark all around, including the belly. It doesn't have a different color underneath. It's just kind of interesting. The little paws are black. Yeah, little saxophone fingers. Yeah, so I'm going to try to figure out how to do that. I think what I'm going to try to do, I did this once before and it almost kind of worked, is I've got this no, I don't have it anymore. Huh. That's really not helpful. This very stiff bristled brush that's supposed to be used. There it is. This is, you can see it's very, there's no way to paint anything, a little model with this, but what I can do is get little bits of white paint on the tips of all of those little bristles. Okay. And go and kind of basically stamp on instead of dry brushing, dry stamping by your paint. Make it that way. And if it turns out crummy, as I say frequently on this stream, I can just reprime it and try it again. So if I'm going to be doing that, like that, I definitely need to do the scarf later and do that later, because I'll be getting paint on the scarf and the saxophone. But I can avoid the hat. You know, and if nothing else, at least the hat will be done, right? All right. If this is going to be Who related, I mean, Nines related, Nines is our Tabaxi Bard. You know, if, for example, there were a tragic transformation accident for, you know, yeah, keeping this on screen when I've got, how much room do I have here? 5 inches to work with. Okay, I'm going to do a thing here. Okay, see that spot? More or less in the middle. There. That's a real studio trick. So if I pay attention to the cardboard, you know, our high-tech work surface here, this piece of cardboard that we cut out of a box, if I pay attention to that, that is on screen. Doesn't do me much good when I'm way up above like that, but anyway, yeah. So if this is Nines related, Nines keeps asking for pink things, the hat's going to be pink. So I'm sure Nines will be thrilled by that. Oh, gee, let me find some brushes. I'll definitely be needing this one. Teensiest little brush, and this one's pretty tiny too. And then I might also use something like this just to do the body base coat, because it's all going to be one color except for like the little black on the paws, and later on when I paint the face with the black and white stripes, which are badgerish. Yeah. This needs to be about 50% bigger. You could have done what with lasers? That means, I don't know how much a saxophone does cost. I bet you can get used ones. You might be able to get some that don't work. Since I know that Nines does not know how to play the saxophone, it probably doesn't really much matter if it works well or not. It would sound about as, I mean, a really high class, high quality saxophone would sound about the same as one that's essentially broken. Okay, what I'm aiming for here is to get to at least 25 after before I actually start painting. And I still have a couple of minutes to go. So, yeah, I can procrastinate more. I could just go silent. I could go silent at this point and let you listen to the music. Or, it's as always an exciting thing, I could start mixing the paint. And I know that Who likes it when I kind of go low frequency. And there we go. And get that kind of going. There we go. You have to have a little bit of that. See, when I've got that buzzing in the background, I don't need to talk because you've got that instead. There's not too much difference between that and me talking anyway, so Why waste the talking by talking over that? See this. Need to look at this. You know, I always take those off because I can't see close up with them. Pretty sure it has a hat band on it. I'm going to put my head magnifiers on just so I can see what I'm dealing with here. Yeah, there's a hat band. That'll be a little challenging. Oh, the feather is really cool. The feather it was not only a hat band and a feather. Yeah, this isn't gonna work because I'm gonna have to be holding it here. Okay. Yeah, so that green X now means nothing. But there's like a medallion there. So there's a feather with a medallion. That's a fancy hat. Oh. It's a shame I looked at it like that. That's not good. There's a tiny little printing flaw on the... And if I try to take that off, I know I will snap something off. But it's not good to have it there. The bandana flares out like that, but there's just this little piece that's connecting the two that shouldn't be there. I really need to fix that. I'm gonna try a needle file. I'll be right back. I didn't plan on this because I didn't see this close up. But if I try to use the X-Acto knife to clip that, I know I'm going to break off one of those little things on the bandana. And if I do, I know I'm never going to find it again. And then I'm going to be playing around with toothpicks and stuff again. This is an amazingly detailed little badger. Yeah. It even has all sorts of these little keys, these valves on the saxophone. So when I paint that brass, I'm going to have to paint the valves. I might paint them like gold just so you can see them. So that there's a huge difference. You know, the gold is close to the brass in color, but just want them to be visible. Dang. Okay, I'm going to get that and see if I can't just... Maybe I can use some sandpaper. This might be safer. I'm going to try that. So one of the dogs is up and moving. This is working, actually. Very slow and tedious, but it's unlikely to snap something off. Piece of it, get some fresh grit. Want to go through all the trouble of doing an expert job of adequately painting this and then have a flawed bandana now. Nope. Okay, so there's all sorts of decisions to be made here. Painting the hat pink is one thing. I'm going to paint the hat band purple. Why? Well, not just only because it goes with the pink, but there was a song, I don't know, probably in the late 50s, and one of the lines was a big Panama with a purple hat band. So I'm not sure this is a Panama. It looks like an Aussie kind of hat, but we'll just say that this is going to be a big Panama with a purple hat band. And the feather, I might make the feather something bright. Maybe like turquoise or something. Something that will clash with the pink. But the medallion itself, which you can't see, because here, just give ourselves a little bit more leeway. The medallion itself on the that holds the feather, I could paint that like a bright red, like it was a round medallion with a little gold spot in the middle. Yeah, talking about this, I could spend the better part of all the time between now and break just painting the hat, and then, not quite getting the hat band right, and then having to touch it up again, and then touching it up, and then touching it up, and never really get to the badger. That's a distinct possibility. So we'll see if that actually happens today. But I do have some pink paint. That I had mixed earlier, but sharpened this toothpick for use with the submarine, and that would be just the thing to get a tiniest little dot of gold paint in the center of that medallion. So maybe a little later I will go off camera for a minute and working. Yeah. Understand who, if you're not paying too much attention to what's going on here, that's totally understandable. If you've got a job, well, you got to do your job. This is my job. Fortunately for my overlords, this compromise between making it close enough for you to see it on camera and keeping it on camera is going to be a challenge. But I'm going to start putting paint on here, so yeah, it's not bad. A little more than a half hour. And we're just starting to do some relaxing painting. So this has kind of become my de facto job. Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Pretty much 10 o'clock. Almost always 10 o'clock. I'm usually pretty much on time. Today I wasn't, because nothing was working. I think I mentioned that. It was late starting because nothing was working. We had to I want to paint over the hat band, primarily because it will then give me an even surface to work with. I'm actually going to paint over the medallion as well. And what I might do with the medallion, this will help me see it better too when I get around to painting it, is I've used this before on the submarine, and sometimes for making little eyes on critters. It's this very fine tipped felt tip pen. So I can use that to get the petals of the medallion. And then I can do that. I'm going to do the little spot of gold in the center first. Dog is up. He was either greeting somebody or wanting something. I think I'm going to paint the feather like a really nice blue color. Maybe aquamarine or turquoise. I guess the paint is actually called turquoise. Maybe that color, or maybe a darker blue. I also have the speed paint, and that I might just get that out to do the feather. It's one tiny little ploop, ploop. And then that will give it, maybe it'll show off the feather texture it's as well. It is on camera. I kept it on camera. I will celebrate that success. And it's not something that happens all the time. So yay for being on camera. That's actually going to be pretty decent. Okay. So that's the largest brush I'm going to be able to use until I actually start painting the body color on the badger. Everything else is extremely tiny on this thing. Really, really tiny. Thank you. Yep. It is pink, isn't it? Very, very pink. I think it will go well with the gray fur and the brass sacks. We'll see if we can maintain being on camera for very long. I'm going to be the hat band is going to be a little bit of a challenge, and I'll probably have to come back with pink paint because it's very narrow. It's like, yeah, I mean, this teeny brush is probably going to, anyway, that might be even too big for it. But the hat band is going to be next. I get to pick a purple. We have gone from like no purples to many purples. We have purple. That's a purple color. We have royal purple, which is a little bluer, I guess. And we got heavy violet. Oh, heavy violet. And I'm not sure. Let's see what I can do. So I can set these here so that you can see I've got choices. Always have options, right? You have to have options. And I can find my color chart. This is a professionally prepared color chart done by taking a piece of paper and smearing paint on it. So there we've got purple, royal purple, and heavy violet. I think just plain purple. I think for this, just plain purple will work. And I'm looking at the feather, and it's either going to be, I think, the azure is always tempting. It's a really nice light kind of blue, but I think with the pinkiness of this, I might go more with like a royal blue. It's pretty nice. The ultramarine and the flat have a little more gray in them. So it's either that or the blue speed paint. Blue or the blue speed paint. But I'm a little bit distant from that yet. Get some of these other colors out. I'm going to be using gold and brass for the saxophone, and gold for the keys, the key things, the valve manipulator things on the saxophone. Let's see. Yeah, kind of want this to be dry before I paint the hat band. Not quite yet. That's the problem with this hat, is that it's like I need to put like 4 colors on it in this tiny little area. But I can't. I have to wait for the pink to dry before I start putting else on it. I can probably put the little gold center of the medallion in. And what I wanted was that sharpened toothpick that I use for the submarine that is nowhere to be found. And I had a whole pile of toothpicks, so now I don't have any. Okay, well, what you get to do is you get to see me watch paint dry, because I really can't do anything till that pink dries, other than try to put the tiniest little dot of gold paint on the center of the medallion on the hat. But I need a toothpick for that. The painting instructions for this Renwall submarine actually suggest using toothpicks, because it says, well, you don't have to paint this because it's already gray. Like, that's what most submarine parts are gray. But if you decide to do that, use a little brush, and for the detail, like the heads of the rivets, seriously, I'm not even with the detail doing the heads of the rivets. Use the tip of a toothpick. Okay. So this is so tiny. I'm going to hold this way up. We'll see if it focuses. Can you focus? Sort of focusing. You can see there's this medallion here, and it's kind of a rosette. And in the center of it, I'm going to put a little gold dot. And then around it, I'm going to use a red felt tip pen and fill in the rest of the rosette. So stir the gold here. You don't even need to put a drop in the palette thing here, because I need virtually none of this. The light, this wonderful light from my head magnifier. Okay, so I'm going to use this round toothpick that already has a very, very fine little point. And I'm going to take a tiny bit of this paint the tip of the bottle. And I'm going to see if I can even see where I'm going here. Yeah, I knew that would happen. I'm getting a little bit onto the middle of the rosette just because of the angle I was using. But that's why I'm doing it before I'm doing the rosette. Okay, yeah. So I got there's too much of it there, but I'll paint it. When I use the felt tip pen, I'll be going down to it. And so hopefully be able to get around. I decided I was just going to use purple. I'll put these other guys away because I'm not using them. And I am going to attempt to paint the hat band. And I need like that much paint because it's already oozing out, so there's way too much there. But yeah, I don't know if you'll be able to see very much of this. I need to be moving it around and just pretty much taking these tiny bits of paint and trying to touch it to where the hat band is and not touch it where it isn't. The hat band extends behind where the hat curls up. So get it in there as much as I can. But at some point I might not be able to. I'll try that again later. I'm trying to get it under the feather here, and it's just really hard to reach. Don't have to be particularly worried about getting it on the feather. So that's going to be painted blue. Yeah, so as I'm reaching, I'm getting a little dot of purple on the brim of the hat there. So I'm going to have to touch that up with the pink. Try again to get underneath the fold of the hat. So that's not too bad. It's not up to the top of the band. Yeah, that's better. I like it bigger like that. It's a little wider, but you can see it better, and that's the point of having a purple hat band. Ooh. Maybe that's not what they meant. Maybe what they meant by that was not so much that the hat had a purple band. Maybe what was meant by that. Hi. Thanks. Yep, I understand if you're working. That's a thing you have to do. But thanks for dropping in, and I'm sorry I didn't catch you early. But thanks for supporting the show. That's really helpful. And thank you. I can't read the chat with these head magnifiers on. Thank you for your first time chat, watching the painting. And yes, I am actually doing painting today of a tiny little saxophone playing badger. And because I am very slow at almost everything I do nowadays, I can say I'm being slow because I'm being careful, but actually I'm being slow because at a certain point in your life, things are slower. And so that is the case here. But I'm very carefully painting a purple hat band. But that raises the question of whether that is a purple band on a hat or whether it is a band in which all of the members wear purple hats. I think that could be a topic of discussion. In this case, it is a band on a hat because the hat's already pink. What I am painting is a minifig of a badger playing a saxophone. And this is very likely, this minifig is actually quite likely to show up in our Dungeons and Dragons campaign why would a saxophone playing badger show up in a Dungeons and Dragons campaign, you might ask? And that would be a good thing to ask. You could ask that. Well, it might show up because one of the characters in our D&D campaign is a tabaxi bard. A tabaxi being a cat-like creature. Another one of the... I'm giving away too much. But you can begin to imagine another one of our characters is a druid. And it can do wild shape. Well, what might happen is that the tabaxi bard, maybe during the show itself, maybe during the stream, or maybe during one of our warm-up sessions. We do improv warm-ups before each of our shows. Then I'll do a plug. You can watch our improv warm-up sessions by becoming a patron on patreon.com/diceanddungeons. And Patreon patrons have exclusive access to our warm-up sessions. So it's possible that during a warm-up session, our tabaxi bard could be transformed into a badger. And what would a badger do? A badger would play the saxophone. I mean, what other instrument would a badger possibly play other than the saxophone? So this hat band isn't too bad in the front. I think that came out okay. Back here, where I was working around the feather, it's really kind of a mess. So I'm going to have to get out the pink paint and just even out the lines. And then there's a spot back here behind the fold of the hat that I didn't get with the little brush I was using. So I'm going to have to touch that up. But this... painting itty-bitty things is it's just a challenge. The hat band here is a little bit wider than it should be, but it shows better. So I'm going to say I'm happy with that. I can't get that spot, so I'm going to stop trying. The next thing I'm going to be doing, it is badger with a saxophone, because this is a classic Dungeons and Dragons, character, right? I mean, if you have a D&D campaign going and you don't have an encounter with a saxophone playing badger for a reason, you are definitely missing out on something. The thing you're missing out on is the saxophone playing badger. But you don't want to miss that if you have the opportunity. Okay. So my options other than this, which will not explain why I'm doing this, is that I had a gigantic demon toad, and if you compare it in size to the 2-scale saxophone playing badger, you can see that this would be quite formidable for any D&D encounter. So I could have that. It could go, and it would be a friendly, okay, just a lick. It looks very scary and demonic, but it's very friendly, and basically it just wants to taste you. It doesn't want to bite, it just wants a taste. So I could have done that, or I could have been doing this shark, which is even bigger. I mean, that could... You have to do that. Nom nom. chomp chomp, and then it spits out the saxophone because it doesn't like the taste of brass. But this you might think that this would have been easier to paint because it's just gray and maybe tan underneath with some teeth, beady eye. But in order to do this well, it would be important to shade from really dark, kind of bluish gray down to a lighter color, and then have a nice boundary between that and the white underbelly or the ivory underbelly, probably. So I decided that I would be painting this badger instead because it's not going to require that much shading. It just requires tiny little dots of paint. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to work on, and we'll see how this goes, is this little felt tip pen, fine felt tip pen. Rather than using a brush to try to paint the petals of the medallion, I'm going to use this. When it works, it's a pretty good red color. I've used this with some success on little bits and pieces of the submarine I've been working on. And that, hold it up so it's not in focus, right? You can't, the camera just isn't, it's confused. It doesn't grab the focus very well. But you can actually see, even out of focus, that it was a success. And now I'm going to paint the feather. And then I'm going to do some pink touch-up on the hat, specifically in the back here, in the spot there where it never got painted. And I'll be doing that with a teeny little brush. But the feather will also be with a teeny brush. And I have a choice between, I selected the color, but now I can't remember what it was. So I get out my trusty color chart once again. It was some sort of blue. I remember that. It was royal blue. I have a choice between royal blue, which is this color. It's royal. Okay. And the blue speed paint. And the advantage of the speed paint is that, at least theoretically, it will there's like 8 of them, and I've gone through 11 already, and I haven't found the blue. There it is. The advantage with the speed paint is that you can see in the feather here, where it's out of focus yet again, there's feather texture. And the speed paint is supposed to fill that in with a darker pigment rather than the lighter pigment. And I'm going to try that. I'm going to test it by getting a piece of paper. There's a piece of paper. I'm going to see which of these two blues I like best. I do this with some frequency, is do little test patches of colors before actually applying them to the model, just to see what is best. Shake well. So let me keep this on camera so you can see that there's actually a pink spot there. So after I finish this feather and touch up the hat, I'm going to be painting the body color on. And that's going to be pretty boring because it's just going to be gray. I'm going to be, except for the very face, which is supposed to be black and white. I'm going to be putting a base coat of, I was thinking I was going to use the dark gray, but I might just use the neutral gray. I'm not sure. Actually, I'm going to practice with that too. I'm going to practice a technique. So you're going to be watching me paint paper a little bit as I test and practice some things. That's a pretty nice blue. I have to say that's a pretty good blue. That's a pretty good blue too. I think I'm going to use the speed paint. I really like the brightness of that blue. And I'm not sure, I don't know, given how tiny that is, the feather, I don't know if it's actually going to work in terms of being able to, show the texture or not. That I am not sure about. But the color is really good. So that's the color it's going to be. And I need to find a brush it's a very thin paint. Okay, I need to find a brush that's both broad enough to this. It's got a pretty fine point on it. If I just confine the paint to the tip, that might work. It's supposed to be capped, but the cap came off to protect the bristles. Anyway, we'll put blue away. We'll put the regular blue back in the holder. And we're going to give this a shake well. Pretty nice. It's pretty good, yeah. It's a pretty good blue, kind of like that's a pretty good gun. You need to watch our D&D campaign, which streams with a live chat 3 Sundays a month at 2 o'clock Eastern Daylight Time. You need to watch our D&D campaign either with the live stream when it streams, live chat when it streams, or catching it on YouTube or as a podcast so that you could get the inside jokes. Okay? You want to be in the know. You want to get the inside jokes, like pretty good. Because if you were watching, you would know the meaning of that. Hint, it has to do with gum. And you might ask, and what does gum have to do with a Dungeons and Dragons campaign? Well, once again, in order to really understand these things, you need to catch and catch up. Our D&D campaign, and you would understand immediately the importance of being pretty good and gum. And then you could be a true insider. You could be a true Dice and Dungeons insider. And you would know these things. You could go, I get the D&D, the Dice and Dungeons inside jokes, because I am a patron. I have access to that. That's pretty good blue. Actually, and the speed paint kind of worked on that. I mean, it's not perfect, but it's definitely adequate. So with these head magnifiers, I'm taking a real chance today. Oh, I see what I need to do here. Okay, is the top of the medallion needs to be red as well. I didn't see that until I turned it in a specific direction, rotated it, and saw that there was a flaw. A flaw having to do with omission in terms of where the red felt tip pen went. Okay, now this holds a lot of paint. Get things, put that there. So usually I use the 2x. Wow, this is not cleaning up. I usually use the 2x magnifier on my head magnifier. And I thought today, well, I'm doing really tiny stuff, you know, and this might show up. This might show up in our D&D campaign, or at least in a warm-up. I want to do a good job. So now I'm using 2.5x, and everything is even bigger, which means all the little flaws and things are even more obvious. So what's wrong here is that this medallion, I did the front of the medallion, which you can kind of see, it sort of comes into focus, but the top of the medallion is still pink. So I'm going to attempt to make it red with this pen. Very patiently waiting for the red ink to come out on the felt tip. Applying it to the ridges on the top of the medallion without getting it onto the side of the hat. Amazing how what looks like a perfectly smooth line to the unmagnified eye looks ragged to the 2.5 times magnified eye. Okay, what I need to do now is do the pink touch-up without messing up anything else, either the purple or the red. So I see there's a bunch of things that need to be touched up here, and it requires tiny little bits of paint on the very tip a very tiny brush. My least favorite thing is relaxing painting here. So I've got like the inside, right here, the inside of the fold of the hat, which got some purple paint on it because I was attempting to get the hat band inside. Some of the little spots where the original coverage was a little bit thin. Most of the touch-up is back here around the bottom of the feather, because getting to the hat band, it was a difficult reach. Staying on camera too, that's really, you don't know how lucky you are today. I'm actually keeping my painting on camera. To very soon. Okay, there's a spot there. That's the kind of spot where I say I should really just leave that alone. I should absolutely, totally leave that alone, because if I try to do anything with it, I'm going to mess it up. And then almost always what I do is I don't leave it alone. And then almost always what happens is I mess it up. And it takes 3 times longer and leaves blots of paint all over the place in my effort to make it go away. And that I am just going to leave it alone. There is a spot here though that inside the fold of the hat never got painted, and it's kind of difficult to reach, but I think I have enough of it so that if for some reason the camera were to show that, it would look okay. So there. We have a badger hat with a medallion, a rosette medallion, and a pretty blue feather, and a purple hat band. And now I am going to paint the badger body. And I'm also going to paint the bandana. Okay. And then paint over the gray bandana. But first, I lied. I'm not going to do that next. I'm going to test 2 or 3 alternatives to how the body will get painted. Because the badger has a dark undercoat. The fur, the hairs of the fur are dark on the bottom and light on the top. And so it ends up looking kind of light gray, but it's not a uniform gray. It's kind of speckled. The only uniform colors are right on the face, where it has very distinct black and white stripes. I actually have a picture of a badger. In anticipation of choosing the saxophone playing badger among the things I might paint, I got a picture of badger. You could see the texture of that, and I don't know, I'm not going to be able to replicate that very well, but I'm going to give it a try. Okay, and this isn't too bad, except that in this particular model, most of the face is hidden by the hat. So I'll be painting little black and white stripes, up to, but not including the hat. And then the bandana, I don't know. I might paint the bandana to match the feather, because that's a pretty good blue. But first, what I'm going to do is very carefully get myself a test palette here. And I'm going to try 2 different base coats. I'm going to try a light gray and a dark gray. Okay. And then I'm going to try like 2 different colors of stippling using this. Very gently on it to see if I can't get something similar to the effect of the actual fur. So I'm going to just grab these kind of larger brushes because I want to get a swatch, a color swatch of one of the light grays and the dark grays, and then play with, I don't need these on, and then test different texturing techniques to see if I can get the effect of the fur. I mean, most of this is just the badger body, and I want the badger body to look pretty nice. I want it to look pretty good. I think I can get, I can play around and get the stripes on the face, and I can get the dark paws. But the badger body itself, I want to see what I can do. I need to test some things before I start painting the badger body. I'm going to test badger body painting options. This is neutral gray. How they decide what the names of the colors are. It's a lighter gray. It's lighter gray than the dark gray, which is named dark gray. I want to paint fairly large swatches here, much larger than the badger body itself, because I want to practice different stippling techniques with a couple different colors to see how they look, and also just to test to see whether it's something I can pull off, given my limited skill level. So one thing I could say is that, I used to be pretty good at this, and then as I got older, I don't see as well, my hand isn't as steady, that kind of thing. So I could say I used to be really pretty decent at this painting stuff, and now I'm just doing as well as I can. But that wouldn't be true, is that I never learned a lot of the very basic shading and dry brushing and highlighting techniques that one would have if one was a really professional. Learned was how to paint little bits of paint on models, and I stayed within the lines and never did very much shading or anything like that. So when you watch me do this, you usually the star is getting low. I think I just thinned this actually. As you can see, it's much darker, and it's going to be. That's why I'm testing this. Is it too dark, or will it actually, when I put the white stippling on to sort of stimulate the variation in the hair color, will it actually end up looking better? That's what I don't know. That's why I'm doing this with 2 different colors of gray. that was relaxing. For me, that was relaxing painting. It lived up to its name. Painting this hat wasn't too not relaxing. You know, it came out okay. I kind of like that. In fact, I should just leave this the way it is. Maybe what I really should do is just like paint the saxophone and maybe the bandana and leave the badger just painted primer. That would be relaxing. But no, probably not. I should do the right thing and try to paint the badger to look like a badger. At least sort of, at least close enough, so that if we did use it in our D&D campaign and it showed up on the stream, okay, to be honest, if we used it in our D&D campaign, it would be on camera. It would be like that. You could barely tell it was there. You could see it was a pink hat with a blue feather. You couldn't even see the hat band that I laboriously painted, much less a cute little medallion. Okay, you could tell it was gray. But yeah, it would be like that far away. So, not trying to do a display model kind of thing, but you know, if it turns out to be a character on our stream, I at least want it to look okay. So I am going to paint the body, one of these two colors. And then after that, we'll be painting the highlights, which include the bandana, the stripes on its face, its little black nose, its little paws. One thing that's easier about this is that the belly of a badger isn't very differently colored than the back, so I don't have to kind of try to shade a lighter color, which, given that it's behind the saxophone, is a good thing. See that? If I stipple it, that's why the saxophone is going to get painted afterwards, because there's no way to get that effect in there without getting it all over. Get up to the hat. Anyway, we'll see how it goes. We need to let this dry a little bit. I'm going to try it's really quite white, okay, at least in this picture. So I've got a very white, dead white that I can use. And I've also got a sort of toned down white that's called ivory that I almost always have out. I don't. How light is Stonewall Gray? I wonder if that would work. Stonewall Gray is too dark. I need to find the ivory, which is in here somewhere. Ivory's kind of, it looks kind of yellowish at first, but it sometimes is a better white on camera than white, if that makes any sense at all. We're going to try this first. We're going to try dead white, and I'm going to attempt to just, I think I actually painted a badger once before, and I think I did this. It might have worked. I don't remember. I remember painting a badger before, but I don't remember how I managed to get the coat to look decent. And I think this is what I did, and I think it worked. I should keep this on camera. There we go. So you can admire the pink hat. The trick to this working, if I recall correctly, is there has to be practically no paint on these bristles, because I want tiny little dots. So if you look at that, you can see where there's blops. I want it like that. Okay. So where it's kind of, let me see what that was. That was actually this is why I do a test. Okay. So if I'm real careful about how much paint gets on there, see, like that was not good, but here is good. Be like nearly dry in the well there. Well, there's still a lot of paint on there, but yeah. So I'm going to try this. That kind of works. Okay. And I'm kind of liking it on the dark gray, but we'll see. We'll see how that works. Probably going to be taking my break a little bit early. There will be two reasons for that. One is I want to ask my artistic consultant, Nicole, who plays Zoria Ansul, our changeling druid. I want to ask her opinion about which of the four options, the two base colors and the two detail colors, seems to work best for badgerness. And the other is I had a large cup of coffee, so I'm sure that you understand that. Before I start trying to do something that is, like this, it needs to be relaxing painting, right? You can see it's a little bit yellower, right? We're trying to be as dry brushy as we can be with the dry brushiness here. Okay. Not too bad. Clean this out as much as I can here. was important, as I discovered, it's really important to have very, very little paint on the brush itself, and then to be really patient and do it a lot. You might have to do it like many, many times in order to get the paint on there, but it's better to have lots of little pokes with hardly any paint than a poke with too much. Like here, the first one I did, it got kind of blotty. And that was because there was more paint on the edges of the tips of this brush than I wanted. Okay, but at least I have a technique that might come close to working. And I need to get an opinion about the base coat and the highlight coat colors. And so this badger, okay, which now has a beautiful hat, this beautifully chapeaued badger, is going to be one of these four things: either this color undercoat with either a white or an ivory overcoat, or this color white or an ivory. If I were to pick, I would pick this one, the dark gray with just a white on it, although the ivory looks okay too. And what you have to do is imagine that these little stripes and stuff that I did a better job of doing the dapping with the dry brush than I did that's part of the reason I practiced, right? So I'm going to take my break early for the reasons of both I need a break and also to get an opinion about the colors. And I will be back. I'll try to, I know, Fala, thanks for joining in just as the break was about to start. I will do a flip for you just before I stop. And I'm going to move Badger out of the way so that when I flip something, it doesn't break it. Okay. And since you're so late in asking for a flip, I'm just going to flip a toothpick. There we go. All right, that's that. I'll be back. I'm going to try to keep it a short break. I'm going to be back, if I possibly can, by about noon Eastern Daylight Time. That's about 20 minutes from now. Yeah, I should be able to do this. Should be able to take care of what I need to take care of, and then be back and be painting the body of the badger. And then after I paint the body of the badger, I will do some sort of stippling to make it look badgery. And then I'll get out some white and black paint and try to get the stripes on, and then do the paws, do the bandana, which will be a little challenging, but not as bad as the hat band. And then the saxophone. And I might finish that today. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe if I'm really lucky, I can just talk about getting it done rather than getting it done, and carry it out all the way until Monday. So there's a little blip back of the saxophone. I'm not sure if that's part of it or not. Anyway, yeah, break time. I will be back right about noon. See you then. Well, back from break, and I'm only, I don't know, like 10 minutes late. I guess that's pretty decent. More or less, sort of. So the decision was that we are going to go with a dark gray, and it didn't matter whether it was white or ivory, because they're both about the same. And what I need to do is get the technique more like this, which is to say extremely dry brushed before putting it on the model. So what I need to do now is pick a brush probably this one. I need to cover a fairly large area of the model, but I also need to get up like around the bottom of the hat without getting all over it. I don't care much if I get on the saxophone or on the neckerchief. In fact, I'll probably paint the neckerchief gray anyway, because I'm not going to be able to work around it very easily, I don't think. We'll see how it goes. I'm putting it on a stand now because I'm going to be painting all the way around the bottom and things, and there'll be no place to grab it. So, that. I think what I'll probably do is start up here on the face, okay, and get up under the hat. And I think if I'm careful, I can maybe not paint the neckerchief very much, which would make using the speed paint on it a little bit easier later. I think this brush might work that way. We'll see. If worse comes to worse, it'll be worse. So I'm going to give this paint a good mixing. Because it's kind of like down at the bottom of the bottle. Needs to be thinned every now and then because the solvent has evaporated and there's more pigment left. So this is pretty much just getting paint not onto things like the bottom of the hat. And once this is done and dry, then I'll do the stippling and then the face detail and the paw detail. And sometime today or Monday, eventually, I find that if you just keep at something, you know, unless you make a big mess of it, eventually it gets done. And that's what's happening here. Is eventually this little saxophone playing badger is going to get done, I guess. Yeah, that's what I'm aiming for, is eventually finishing the badger. The best brush in the world for this, but it's doing okay so far. I'm going to put my head magnifiers on just for this, you know, to make sure it's getting covered right. It's really hard to see otherwise. And then too often I come back and look at it and go, like the whole spot got missed. Didn't get covered, or there's a big flaw in the paint. Yes, that's happened too many times already in the past. This brush is going away. The tip of that brush like just totally disintegrated. It flared out completely, very, very badly. Very badly. I'm not sure quite how that happened, but usually when you put paint on it, it's supposed to be more coherent. And that became just much less coherent. No one will see under the hat brim, except when I turn it this way. I can see under the hat brim. That bit there needs to be badger colored and not hat colored. I'm gonna have to use a little brush to get to that, though. I can't. Just really can't do that with this brush. The backs of these little badger hands here. And I'm not quite sure how the black paint is going to work on it, so if it's all gray, then at least it'll be painted something. Grass usually covers pretty well, so I'm not too concerned about that. Little bitty hands and feet. Excuse me. It's just times after break, it just starts feeling colder down here than it does before. I don't know what changes. There's way too much paint on the brush right there. I'm not too concerned about getting it onto the base because the base gets painted and washed. I'm more concerned about making sure that all the little bits, the hard to reach bits, have paint on them. Paint it up to the bandana adequately. I'm going to have to get the little bitty brush out just to get the little parts under the hat brim and stuff that I can't get with that brush. Excuse me again. It's just going to be that kind of thing. It's just going to be sniffles. Once I have this out, I'm just going to rotate this handy dandy thing. Make sure I haven't missed anything, especially up like around the backs of things where it's easy to miss. What we're getting down to now is the letting that dry and then doing the stippling. It's kind of a make or break thing for the Badger, is so that it doesn't just look like it's gray. And I'm going to have to, I was practicing before with the paper and sort of got a technique down that involved getting rid of almost all of the paint on the bristles of that brush. And there's hardly any paint left on it, which means that it takes multiple applications to get any little like dots, stipple dots onto the Badger. Excuse me. You're just going to have to put up with that now, I guess. Because for some reason I went upstairs and got some expert advice about color combination. And it turned out to be this one, the dark gray with the white stippling. Hopefully like that or like this, not with little stripes and junk on it. Yeah, anyway. I'm back, and now I've got a runny nose, as they say. They being whoever says that. This brush. Well, if this brush can even be saved. The bristles are just all over the place. So you know what I'm going to do with this? Other than getting a paper towel. Hold on. Starting to think that I'm allergic to coming back after the break. I'm really starting to think that that's what the issue is. But I'm looking for this. I have these tiny little curved, almost surgical-like scissors that they don't cut as well as you think they might, but they're not bad. And since this brush, if you can see it, the bristles are just everywhere, right? What I'm going to try to do is I'm going to give it a haircut. I'm just going to cut these off so it sort of comes to a point. And then see if it's even usable anymore. And if not, it might just, it might just become a prop, like with empty paint bottles. We'll have useless brush as a prop, meaning it'll be in the background of something sometime, maybe somewhere, you never know. And either this will work or it won't. And if it doesn't, well, there's no loss because the brush is useless as it is. And if it does, then the brush will have a second life. And it's also something to do while I'm waiting for that gray paint to dry before I start stippling all over it. And so with the stippling, I want very, very little paint on the brush. So it's another one of those things where if I have like no paint on the brush, no harm done. But if I have too much paint on the brush, then it's bad. So there's only one direction of error that really can be permitted here, and that is to do this with practically no paint on the brush. We'll see if I can pull that off. Right in the well where the other white paint was. What the heck? Okay. And take this and spread it around so that it's just a very thin coating on there. Now there's way too much paint on the brush, but that's coming off by doing this. Okay. And now I'm going to start poking at it. Yeah, I'm getting some on the rim of the hat and on the feather. That's not good. Not helpful. This brush is definitely not coherent. To sort of start it all together. It's a brush. And then it just spread out as I started poking with it. Which I guess makes sense because I'm poking with it. I really kind of want, and what I'm not getting, is that the high areas back here are getting more on it. I want it to look more like that. Repaint the butt. You know, the high area there where it's got too many speckles on it. I'm going to repaint that and then touch it up again. And what's happening here is I'm trying to get into the hollows and getting way too much on the high points. Just dry. And repaint the spots that are just way too heavily white. And then I'll be able to touch those. And try again. I guess that's what I'll do, is wait for that to dry and then try again. Because I wanted the speckling to be very light, like it is on little parts of this, but it got pretty heavy. Well, let's just say that didn't work that well. It just didn't work that well, and we'll have to try it again. And then I'll have to touch up the high points of the hat and the feather, where I got the white on it. So we'll just get some of this gray paint back out again and find the brush I was using. And make it gray again, and then hopefully I'll be able to do a better job with the speckling. Those high points. Maybe I can do that. Let me try that. I'm just going to try. What I'm trying to do is dry brush over the white. Except for that one spot that I started before I tried the dry brushing. This is sort of working. This is like a movie prop. Okay, it might not be exactly badger fur. It is on camera. It might look like badger fur. So that's what
That's what I need to do here, is not so much recreate badger fur as recreate the impression on camera of badger fur. What I'm doing is I'm doing a pretty good job of giving an impression of a really kind of crappy paint job, because I wasn't able to accurately reproduce badger fur here. A failure at that. Except for this little spot here, this blot there on its back, where I had initially just put a lot of gray on instead of just sort of dry brushing it on. It's looking, I don't know, it's not too bad. I'm going to try to replicate kind of at least some sort of uniformity into uniformity in color. Got this up here. Oh, it's like, this isn't too bad, okay? I mean, it's a little bit, uneven, but it's not too bad. This spot here. So what I'm going to try to do is, I'm not going to use that other brush again. I'm not sure what I can do. I'm going to see if I have anything else that I can use. Maybe I'll just keep using this. The splotches are too big. Go back to this. Okay, that's too big, but then if I do the gray on top of that, like here, then it's not too bad. So I'm gonna just do that and then come back with the gray, and then I'm gonna call it that's as good as I can get it. What I can do while I'm waiting for that to dry is I can fix the hat. And since I'm going to use the speed paint on the bandana, when I fix the bandana, I will paint that as well. But I need the little brush for this. Getting badger fur just isn't easy, because it looked okay on here, but the scale is so much bigger than the actual tiny little badger thing that the scale of the little white dots just is totally different. Anyway,
we'll fix the hat, because that's the most important thing, is the hat. Got on the hat, so we got to make those go away and restore its pinkiness. Okay, and then I'll get the blue speed paint out and fix the feather and the bandana. This is where I really should reintroduce my ongoing rant, my recurring theme rant about the difference between designing and manufacturing. This is a sculpture. You know, it's very cool. As a thing to paint, really a pain in the butt. Designers of these things make really cool looking models that sometimes are next to impossible to paint very well. A whole lot of, nope, can't get there from here, kinds of things that appear from time to time. This one has, about an average amount of surface area that you can't get to from here. Neat spot of blue paint that I got on the hat, because from one's perspective it looked like it needed to be blue, and then you rotate it and it definitely wasn't supposed to be.
Okay, so when this dries, I need to touch a couple of spots of pink on this side of the hat. And what I'm going to do then, now, is I'm going to get the gray paint back out again and dry brush the gray over the white to try to get some sort of sense of uniformity in the grayness of it. I can't touch the pink up right now because it's still wet. That's the issue there. And we'll just see how this goes. What I want to do, the first touching up is back here where I did a whole lot of added on white. That needs to be less white. When you look at this through magnification, it doesn't look very good, but when you look at it from a distance, it's not too bad. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure if the artists among us find this to be acceptable. Let's just say it's getting to be about as adequate as I can get it. Hoping that everybody will be seriously distracted by the hat and the saxophone and not notice too much that the fur of the badger doesn't look very badgery. If it looks adequately badgery, I guess. Yeah. Oh. The largest part turned out to be the hardest part. It would have been better if I'd used the light gray, maybe. But it's not what I did. I'm going to now touch up the hat. And a couple of spots where it needs touching up. And then I'm going to paint the white on the nose. And what I'm going to do there is cheat a little bit in that instead of trying to paint black and white stripes, I'm just going to paint it white and then paint black stripes on the white. Okay, so I'm only going to be painting like 2 stripes on the nose instead of 4. And maybe we'll see if that works. And then there's other little bits once I paint the black. Once little white nose parts come on. That'll be the paws, on the paws and a few other spots as well. It's just like a white spot there that's kind of annoying.
isn't right. I hate to keep coming back and forth like this, but it's just when I look at it without the magnifier. Tone down. Okay, enough of that. Let's do the pink touch-up, and then I'll get the white out and try to paint the face in preparation for putting the black stripes on. And then I can paint the saxophone. I've got an hour left, so there should be plenty of time. Unfortunately, there'll be plenty of time to do that. Pink, right? Another dot of pink. Another bitty brush. And what there is a little spot right there that didn't get painted before, and then a tiny bit of pink here where the blue bandana color came up. Just a little too far into the hair. And actually touch. And there. Where the bandana ends and the hat starts. It's a little hard to tell. But that's a better spot than it was before. Oh my, what's that? Did that happen here? That's just really odd. Okay. There's just like this blot underneath the chin, I think, and it's really large. I have no idea what that is or how it got there. It's almost like a big chunk of like a big blot of the blue from the bandana hit the chin. Okay. So the way a badger has a white stripe right down the center of its nose. Okay, right down the middle up to its nose, which is black. And then white on the sides. So there's like 3 white stripes basically. One there, and then one on either side. Kind of right along the chin line is, right along the lip line, I think is where they are. And it's black in between. We're getting the white on. Painting black over white is fairly straightforward, so if the white goes a little too far, you know, I could use the black to try to even it out. Oh, that's a good question. I was just going to do it brass. I was going to do it brass with gold for the valves, so that you could see the valves. But since this might be kind of your saxophone, what do you think? Give you an option. I'll let you kind of decide. What I was planning to do with brass with gold highlights for the valves. I could do something else. Getting white on the hat. I'm getting white on the hat and not on the nose. Yeah, see, that went too far. That side is okay. This side is maybe a little too far. And then I use a little stray bristle. You're doing something like this that is not what is not helpful. The right side of its face is coming along quite nicely, and the left side of its face is not. I'm trying to make them a little more symmetric. Yeah, that'll be fun to do. We'll get some symmetry here. Bone, and then we'll work and not use. I don't think there's a couple of black colors I could use. One is very nice flat black. I think I'm going to use that. I'm going to use the Vallejo flat black, assuming I can find it here. There it is. This tends to behave pretty well. I have some NATO black, which has a little more green in it, but I think the black on the Badger is really quite light absorbent. Need to use the gray again under the chin. I have to wait for the white to dry before I can really do much about it, though. Might as well not touch up the hat until I'm done with the black, because then I'm more likely to not have a spot of black on it as well. Yeah, let's get impatient. I'm going to paint. I can paint some of these other little bits of it, the black, before I touch up its face. I get to practice with this paint and see what its consistency is like. The little, their feet and hands are black. I hope that's still kind of on stream. Kind of the tip of the tail. Sort of pulling the paint up a little bit so that the boundary looks a little more natural and not just like a edge of painting. Paint the nose. That's the most important thing. Just have a black nose.
At some point, we just say, that's as good as that's going to get. It's really close to that point right now. Pretty badgery, that's not too bad. A little bit up here. Then probably a little gray just underneath the chin. Although from the top, it looks like I don't want to mess with this anymore. I just have some pink hat touch-up to do. And let's see, I got the paws. The tail. Yeah, I'm just not going to mess with it anymore. I'm going to touch up the hat for like the 5th time. Right? And then do the saxophone. I haven't heard back from who's got just a couple more minutes before it's cut off. Before we cut off the ability to comment on the color of the saxophone. Okay, I'm going to have to use the tiny brush pretty much on the saxophone because there's some areas that, like where it touches the nose and the paws. And then I'm going to keep this brush out because maybe I can use it then, you know, for the rest of it, just to give it, you know, a little bit more uniformity. But up here and around there and around the back and stuff, I have to use the tiny little bitty brush. And I haven't heard, so I guess it's just going to be brass. You can always repaint it. You know, if somebody decides that they really want to have like an aquamarine glossy saxophone, you know, it's possible to do that. But initially, at least, it's just going to be a standard sax, you know, just that. One thing I am going to do, besides the gold on the valve covers and stuff, you know, just as highlights, I have this bronze paint. I think I'm going to put in the cup of the under the saxophone there. So that it looks a little darker than the rest. Just kind of my effort at doing a little bit of shading. sometimes the case, the very back of the sacks might not be painted perfectly because it's really hard to get to. Try to do the side here at least. Much underneath here as I can reasonably do without messing something else up. Sometimes it's the case. It's always a happy thing when it happens, is that if you can't reach it, you can't see it. But that's not always the case. Sometimes it's like you can't reach it and you can really see it. Yeah, I decided not to switch brushes. This will just take a while. Yeah, this tiny brush spread brass paint on this thing. Always a lot of time on relaxing painting with Dyson Dungeons because I tend to move slowly anyway. And there's always Monday, Wednesday, or Friday. Monday or Friday. You know, the next time. There's always the next time. So if something doesn't get finished, well, there's always the next time. Right. I'll do the inside of this in brass, but I'm going to get the bronze paint out after it's dried and paint the inside of that bronze just so it looks darker, you know, so you can tell that that's inset. And it sort of looks like a badger. Mainly looks like a pink hat, but a pink hat playing a sax. That's just fine. Okay, we're gonna let this paint dry, and then I'm gonna come back and put little gold highlights on the valve buttons. Okay, so you can see them. And then I'm going to use some bronze paint and sort of shade it from the inside out in the, I don't know what you call it, the exit of the sax. I probably should let that dry just a bit before I start highlighting it, otherwise the paints will just run into each other, and that really won't help the appearance very much. White brass, we don't need that. It's bronze. What's this one? Polished gold. Ooh. Maybe I should use polished gold instead of gold. Why not? It'll be shinier. It'll contrast a little bit. Sometimes I paint the base of these. When I've been doing them, I've been painting them gray. But this time I'm going to paint the base brown so that it contrasts a little better with the gray of the model. And just to move things along, I'm going to put the base coat on the base now while I'm waiting for that brass paint to dry.
And I'm just going to use, kind of a light brown. I'm going to use this flat earth, and then I'm going to do a brown wash on it. Usually I would do this last, but I'm waiting for paint to dry, and this needs to be done, so I go ahead and get it done while I'm waiting for the paint to dry. Why not? And this little bitty brush is getting quite a workout, but I have to go around these tiny little badger toes and the tail. And then maybe I can use a little bigger brush once those are outlined. I don't know, we'll see. Just slightly abusing this brush. They're getting paint way up in the top of the bristles where it's hard to clean. But I'm kind of painting sideways base here. Yeah, you would think that this isn't the part where I needed to go silent because of the detail, but it actually is. I don't want to mess things up right here at the end by slopping brown paint on everything. I'm going to use a little larger brush now to finish that off, and then I'm going to go back to this and paint polished gold highlights on the valves on the saxophone so you can actually see them. Why not? Since they're there, they want to be seen. During the Monty Python sketch. Those of you who know that, how not to be seen. Somebody's there. Every once in a while, one of the dogs, the watchdog of the two dogs, imagines that there's something from which we need protecting. And then we get a little bit of a bark. Or run through the house, up to the window. I will defend you from this imaginary thing that I think I'm seeing that isn't really there. Get close to this.
being brown, and then I'll get the polished gold paint out, and yeah, do some more relaxing painting with Dyson Dungeons. So this is primarily, well, as I've said many times before, and I'll say it again, this stream is kind of a spin-off of our Dungeons and Dragons campaign, because we started producing dungeon tiles and minifigs for that stream, and since they were getting painted anyway, DM said, well, why don't you stream the painting? And then you're sitting there in this workbench. It's not a studio, obviously. It's not a studio. It is just a workbench. But, you're sitting there painting on the workbench. So, the W bench there. Why don't you stream that too? I've got all the stuff we need to do that. I got an extra camera, and this little ring light thing isn't very expensive. And you can use high-tech expensive things like cardboard and these things, these pallets. You can buy a dozen of those for a couple of bucks. And so this is a low-cost thing that you're doing anyway. And since you're doing it anyway, sure, let's stream it. And I says, well, whatever, I'm doing it anyway. So I don't care if there's a camera. The only problem is there's a microphone, and we are playing background music, which is actually playing, which is cool. So I could be silent. But, why not just go on about stuff? So on Sub Wednesday, I got to talk about nuclear Armageddon growing up in the 1950s and 60s when school basements were fallout shelters and stuff like that, and that was kind of fun. That was cool. Today I just talk about I have to do pink touch-up again. Look at that. Oh my, now I have to do pink touch-up again. I just got paint on the head. I have to do pink touch-up again. Makes you wonder why I even bothered painting it, but it was. So I'm not sure. This will show somewhat. This is a bright gold color, and I am applying it to these the valves, and it'll be kind of subtle, but you'll actually, you'll see it as shading. These things are brighter than the surrounding grass. Sometimes it actually shows up better in camera than it does in real life, but I know it's out of focus, but you can still see that it's a brighter color. Band down here, I'm going to paint that. Just so it's one more thing that is a slightly different shade of yellow. A lot of this just depends on the way the light hits it. Sometimes you can barely see it. Sometimes it's very obvious. It's just, with these metallics, it's often that way. Same thing with whatever this is done from. I don't know much about saxophones at all, so I have no idea what this is, but you know, it's standing out from the rest of the print, so I'm going to highlight it by putting some of this polished gold paint on it. It's kind of one down the center here in the front. It's going to be hard to do, but I'm going to see what I can do with it. Maybe no, it's just sort of holding the valves. There's this stone. So there's, you know, it kind of highlights them. You can see them a little better than you could before. Against the plain brass, especially if the light hits it right. Yep. Thing I want to do on the saxophone is I'm going to get some bronze paint out, which is a darker color, a darker metallic, and just put some in the center of the exit of the horn. If Nines doesn't like the brass sax, we can always change its color. So I guess like 1:30. I might end up ending a little early today. We'll see. If you look in the well here, you can see there actually are quite different colors. That's the polished gold, and that's the brass, and that's the bronze. And again, a lot of that depends on the light. I think this would look better. I could do in here. Yeah, actually that turned out okay. Just to make it look a little darker. All right. What I need to do now is just do some brown wash on the ground. And I think I'm going to use smoky ink because it makes it look pretty nice. Just plain brown wouldn't be quite enough. So I'm going to use some of the smoky ink wash on the brown. If I can get it to stay, so you can sort of see it from the side instead of right from the very top. But that's what this is. It's a badger playing a saxophone. Yeah, for reasons unknown, having to do with the mysterious world of Dice and Dungeons. So this is just going to be splotted, sort of splotted on the brown. I don't want it to be real uniform. I want it to look kind of like ground. So if there's some spots that are thicker or thinner than others, that's a good thing. Did I get it? Up to the feet and all of that. This is a brown wash that has some red in it. We use it for our wood. We have some wood beam and stucco dungeon tiles, and this color combination is what we use for the wood. It works really well. It looks very rich, dark stained oak kind of. And the print actually has pretty deep wood grain in it. And so the wash gets into the wood grain, and it comes out really pretty. Say I wouldn't mind, if we had dark wooden floors. We have wooden floors, but they're light oak. They're kind of natural, unstained oak instead of the dark. But if you wanted dark floors, this combination that we use on our dungeon tiles is actually probably what you would be aiming for. So it's kind of spotty, which is kind of what I was going for. It's okay. So I am going to declare success. This came out all right. And let me just hold it up for you and do a rotation somewhere at a distance where it's sort of focused like that. And we'll just go around, and it doesn't look, it looks kind of speckly, it looks kind of weird, but I hope on camera that it looks all right. But I got the badger face okay. With the white and the black stripes and the black nose. That came out all right. The hat's good. The saxophone turned out okay. I hope you can see the gold highlights against the brass. The color differences are kind of subtle, like the bronze in the horn there. You can see that. The polished gold, if the light hits it right, you can see it pretty strongly. Like on the valves there. I think the hat came out cool. Got the feather, got the little brocade thing there with the gold center and the red petals around it. Got the purple hat band. This particular guy is part of the pink hat band, not the purple hat band.
The base is going to look okay. It'll contrast pretty well with the gray. So I think that came out all right. So I've got a whole bunch of stuff here I need to put away some year. Brush to clean. And, I can take these off. Yay. Put them aside. And I can talk a bit about Dice and Dungeons. In fact, even once I clean this brush, we'll have room to show you some sample dungeon tiles. But Dice and Dungeons is a group of friends and relatives, and we play Dungeons and Dragons. I'm going to have to use the alcohol they used to get the brushes cleaned. On Sundays, 3 Sundays a month with Live Chat at 2. And you can catch prior episodes on YouTube and as a podcast. We are very entertaining, I have to say. The world in which we're working and the scenarios we get into are highly creative, all made by our dungeon mistress, Alexis. And when we started out very simply, and then she got a 3D printer and got out of control and started printing all sorts of dungeon tiles and horses and tents and sleeping bags and bonfires and crates and barrels and pillars and stalactites and stalagmites and crystals, just all sorts of stuff, and we were supposed to paint these things to make them look sort of realistic on camera, and we did. Nicole and I started out painting together. We were side by side here on the workbench, and then somebody got the bright idea of, well, since you're painting, why don't you stream the painting? And that's what's happening here, is that you're watching the streaming of the painting of minifigs and dungeon tiles that end up being used either in our stream or in our warm-ups. Yeah, getting the brush clean here. You've got nothing to see, but here I can leave Saxophone Badger out. Maybe I'll even do this. I'll move the camera down. There we go. Take this a little bit that way. Yeah, sort of in focus. Not really. It's a little too close. A little better. Get the mouse arrow out of the way. I don't know if you could see that or not, but it was right in the middle. Probably been right in the middle of the entire stream. So I've painted various minifigs. Like a while ago, I finished up the Dragonkin clan. This is the red Dragonkin. I've got a blue, green, bronze, black, and silver Dragonkin, all with the same armor motif. One of them, look at there we go. One of them is a cheerleader, and it got printed without a weapon, and so it's here we go. You rah rah. Pretty fun. That was actually fun to do. I don't know if we'll ever see that on the stream or not. It's kind of silly, but the other ones look okay. They're all standard Dragonkin color family things. Let's see. I'm going to try to be careful a little bit by capping this up and setting it aside so I don't knock it over and break it and spill it. Oh, wow, look at all this stuff I got out today. All sorts of brushes, pens and things. Just filled the table. I just filled the table with stuff. Anyway, yeah, so what you're seeing is the result of the Dungeons and Dragons campaign and the decision to stream. Why not? You're doing it anyway. The painting stuff. And on Mondays and Fridays, I do minifigs or dungeon tiles. Now I'm doing a minifig. This one's done. I will be doing one of these two on Monday. Either be doing a giant shark. Yum, crunch, crunch. Or a equally huge, threatening toad. Probably I might try the shark. This will be, you would think it's easy, but this is going to be a couple of shades of gray kind of blending into each other. I'll see how I do with that. But as I'm wrapping up, I am going to show you some of our dungeon tiles. I'm going to do this without knocking anything over. I like to show these off like at least once a week. These are the kind of things we're producing. This is one solid piece. I can move this up again so you can actually see more of it. There we go. This is one printed on the PLA 3D printer as one solid piece, the wall and the floor. You don't have to worry about the wall falling off the floor. You don't have to worry about the angle being wrong. You don't have to worry about them matching up. And underneath this little plate are 8 ball magnets. And so these are magnetized, but not so that they stick to metal. They obviously not. That's cardboard, but they stick to each other. And because they're ball magnets, the magnets rotate so that if you move them into different orientations, they hold together. And so you can make a dungeon with these tiles of almost any kind of configuration that you can imagine, and you can do it very quickly. So the trick is to get a lot of these, a lot of walls and floors, and sometimes little extra bits like trap doors and trap walls where there's a flame shooting out of the wall and that sort of thing. You can get enough of these and you can make big dungeons so that you don't have to imagine that you're in a dungeon. Your minifig can actually be in a dungeon. So if you happen to be a Bollywog, okay, like that's one of the other things. You can like walk through your dungeon and then come up against a dead end and go, oh no, where should I go? Maybe I can go this way. And then it turns out that there is in fact a passageway that you can go this way. And then you get to the end of that and you decide that what you want to do is turn. And so now, of course, it's a little harder with 4 if you had more of these. You could do that, and then maybe you end up like that in a room, and you go, oh no, what shall I do now? A T-junction. The most feared thing in any dungeon is, do I go this way or this way at the T-junction? We tend to be in dungeons with frequent appearance of T-junctions. It's become a trope, a T-trope. Anyway, that's kind of what we do, is paint minifigs that walk around in dungeons. And we do that on our D&D campaign. If you like what you see, please become a follower. I thank everybody, and the Dice and Dungeons in general thanks everybody who has become a follower. If you become a subscriber, that would be terrific. And if you really would like to help out, please go to patreon.com/diceanddungeons and become a patron. That would be cool. Patreon.com/diceanddungeons. On Monday, I will be once again painting something. And it is either going to be the shark or the toad. Either one presents a challenge in highlighting and shading, which I find much more difficult than doing just simple things like putting tiny little touches of stuff together. This one might be kind of a cool thing to do with the speed paints. You have to decide what colors to do it, because it's got all this cool texture on it that the paints might work on, and then I can paint these spikes kind of maybe ivory or a beige kind of color, and use there's a kind of a brownish white thing. I might play around with the speed paints on this, because if worse comes to worse, one can always repaint it. I mean, I could do maybe I'll do some interesting things, like give it red toes, okay, and different colored spikes, and maybe kind of brownish beige on the bottom and green on the top, maybe some blue highlights, I don't know, maybe even some phosphorescence. Not for phosphorescence. What am I saying? We don't have phosphorescent paint. We have pearlescent paint. I might even do a little pearlescence. I'm not sure. You know, Nicole would have a lot of fun doing highlighting and shading over it. Like, could use the green wash like we use on our sewer tiles, and have that sort of blend into some brown wash. Do it so it's wet, so they just kind of blend together. Yeah, that might be kind of fun. So, I will be painting something on Monday, more or less at 10 until more or less at 2. And it will likely be one of these two things. And maybe I'll show up dungeon tiles again. Maybe not. We'll see. But thanks for watching. Thanks for being a follower. Thanks for being a patron. Thanks for being a subscriber. Just thanks for being a fan of Dice and Dungeons. Have a good weekend, those of you who actually get a weekend. Thank you for working. Those of you who are stuck doing that, that's really appreciated by everybody else. And if it isn't, it needs to be. Thank you for that. And we'll see you Monday, more or less at 10. Bye.